Our next speaker is Fred Tutman, and he is the Patuxent River Keeper in Southern Maryland, an extraordinary leader for the environment. Fred Tutman.
Well, you lost me. You lost me. That's the email I got this week from a Patuxent Riverkeeper member who was tearing up his card because of our stance on Cove Point. He went on to say, you know, we were fine when you were busting polluters, when you were going out and running enforcement actions, when you were picking up trash. We started hanging out with those crazy people in Tacoma Park who are talking about climate change and all that stuff. Well, this issue has a lot of layers, and people latch on to the layer that interests them most. And for this particular guy, you know, climate change was a deal breaker because he doesn't get the interconnectivity between those layers. Layers like traffic and pollution in the bay, and certainly fracking and all of the extended impacts that would be looked at in their totality if there was an environmental impact statement, right? I mean, doesn't that sound sensible that you look at the totality of these things instead of looking at individual issues in isolation? Frederick Douglass said, and I should point out I'm named after Frederick Douglass, said that without dissent there's no progress. No dissent, no progress. And to me, this is what dissent looks like, because this is what democracy looks like, right? Isn't that what this is about? Democracy is about deliberation, it's about transparency, it's about looking at the totality of these issues, it's about inclusion. It's not about corporate citizens unilaterally deciding what they're going to do, taking it for granted. I mean, I think of these as sleazy tactics, right? You're passing out money instead of straight answers, right? You're passing out cash instead of responding to questions that people have that are very reasonable, even within Calvert County, about traffic and impacts on the waterways and impacts on the quality of life of these communities. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for helping all of us raise the profile of this issue, because I swear to you, 4 months ago, we were crying in the wilderness in Calvert County just to get the newspapers to write about this issue. Right? That this organization, Dominion, had the idea that the only time they were going to start answering questions was when it was too late for you to do something about the answers. So I want to thank you for helping us raise this issue and push this point, because without dissent, there is no progress. And without dissent, there is no justice. Right? And without justice, what do you got? Just us, right? But seriously, this is what democracy looks like, and I really thank you for turning out to fight this battle, because it's the right battle to be fighting. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Ruggles. She's director of the Maryland Environmental Health Network.
I'm Rebecca Ruggles. I'm with the Maryland Environmental Health Network. I live in Baltimore City, and I read the Baltimore Sun, and every week I see what Dominion buys with their money. A full-page ad. This one says 7 facts about Cove Point. I'd like to take issue with their facts, but my job is to talk about health, so I'm going to give you 7 questions. 7 health questions about Cove Point. The first one is noise pollution. We know that noise pollution is linked to sleep disturbance, aggressive behavior, even heart disease. What will the average decibel level be at Cove Point? And also, what will it be at the compressor stations that have to be built every 40 to 70 miles along the pipelines that will bring that gas to Cove Point? My second question, pipeline explosions. Who's keeping count? A week ago in Kentucky, 3 homes were destroyed. And in January, there was a massive explosion in Manitoba, Canada, and 4,000 people lost their natural gas to heat their homes. It was sub-zero temperatures that week in Manitoba, Canada. What were the health impacts on those people? My third question, radon effects. How much radiation is emitted from pipelines with shale gas? We don't know. Radon testing is required in homes because we do know that exposure to radon over long term causes lung cancer. What's the radon exposure related to shale gas? My fourth question is air pollution. Exporting shale gas will mean more drilling, more wells, more truck traffic, more air pollution. How many more asthma cases, I'd like to know? How many more asthma-related emergency room visits? We're actually starting to have this data for places like Wyoming and Colorado, where they never had smog before they started doing shale gas drilling. Fifth question, water contamination. We've heard a lot about the unanswered questions related to the contamination of drinking water in communities where the drilling takes place. I'd like to know what the effect will be on the bay. Will Cove Point warm the bay? When you warm the bay, we start seeing more and more harmful algae blooms. So just in terms of human health, that's cyanobacteria, that's saltwater bacteria like Vibrio. These are really noxious things, bad for people. Will Cove Point warm the bay? My sixth question is climate. Climate is a huge health threat. Climate change means disruption of critical care during major storms, more allergic reactions to pollen, more West Nile virus, more heat stroke, and ultimately threats to our water and our food supplies. So what's the life cycle greenhouse gas impact of Cove Point? That may not sound like a health question. It is. It's a health question. And my last health question, economic inequity. Cove Point is about profits for the oil and gas industry. Look at the regions that have a history of extractive industry. They're poor. After decades, they're still poor. Southwestern, northwestern Pennsylvania, West Virginia, rural Ohio, rural Texas. Poverty has been called the single greatest risk factor for poor health. We need health-promoting energy, not mega projects that make gas industry wealthy while the gas field workers go without health insurance. Is there such a thing as healthy energy? Yes, solar power. What are solar's health effects? No noise, no smog, no water contamination, no radon, no heat island, no greenhouse gas emissions. That's healthy energy. Dominion claims, quote, they are committed to answering each and every one of our questions. So conduct a full environmental impact statement, and let's get the health questions at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. Our next speaker is Emily Worth. She is Water Program Director for Food and Water Watch.
Hello, thank you all so much for being here today, united to stop Cove Point. Although I work in DC, I live in Maryland, and so this fight is personal to me. In my opinion, Cove Point Export Facility sits at the center of critical decisions being made about our energy future, not only here in Maryland, but in the region and in the entire country. That's why we're gathered here today to draw a line in the sand. We're drawing a line against Cove Point, a line against LNG exports, and against drilling and fracking for every last drop of fossil fuel. And instead, we're standing for a future lit by safe, renewable energy resources. Governor O'Malley faces a key decision about whether or not to move forward with fracking in the state, and Cove Point approval would only put more pressure from the industry to move forward with fracking from Garrett County in the west all the way to the eastern shore. So today we're asking Governor O'Malley, whose side are you on? Are you on the oil and gas industry side? Are you on the side of the people of Maryland? And we're asking the Public Service Commission, will you please stand up to protect the public interest of our residents? Cove Point would also increase fracking and the build out of pipeline and compressor stations in the entire region. And that's why our neighbors from Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey are standing here united with us in this fight. Unfortunately, these broader impacts have not even been considered by FERC or by the Obama administration, and that's why we're demanding a full environmental impact assessment. Each week, the body of evidence that drilling and fracking is inherently unsafe grows. Let me just read you a few of the headlines from just this past week. 1 injured, 1 missing at a Southwest Pennsylvania gas well fire. Another one, gas pipeline blast in Kentucky burns houses, leaving huge crater. A third one, Oklahoma earthquake swarm may be related to drilling waste disposal. Explosions, fires, earthquakes, air and water pollution, and health problems. Is this the future that we want to give our children? No. Cove Point is also at the center of the national fight over LNG exports and the associated infrastructure. The Obama administration has received more than 25 applications to export LNG. At Food and Water Watch, we are proud to stand with groups opposing LNG and other fracking infrastructure projects from New York to Oregon, New Jersey to Ohio, and right here in Maryland. And that's because this fight against LNG export is really a global fight to save the planet from climate change. Climate scientists warn that we must keep the fossil fuels in the ground to avert catastrophic climate change. So that's why we have to stand up and we have to work together to make our voices heard. And this movement against fracking has kept fracking out of New York State. It's kept fracking out of the Delaware River Basin. We've passed more than 400 local measures against fracking in communities across the country. We delivered more than 1 million comments to President Obama's BLM to protect public lands from fracking. When we work together and when we make our voices heard, we can make a difference. So today we stand to stop Cove Point, and we won't stop here. Stop Cove Point! Stop Cove Point! Stop Cove Point!
Give yourselves a round of applause. Our next speaker is Karen Faraday. She's a Pennsylvania resident and a founder of Burke's Gas Truth.
All right. So I'm here from Pennsylvania, like Mike just said, because I want to tell you about what's going on there. 161 contaminated water wells and counting. People who have to stand in line to get 3.5 gallons of clean water a day. It takes 5 gallons to flush the average toilet, just to put that in perspective. In my own county, Berks County, where we're not fracking at all, a compressor station dumped 61 tons of volatile organic compounds and 174 million cubic feet of natural gas into the air during Hurricane Sandy. I'm not going to tell you all the details of those stories or a million others I could tell you, because I want to tell you about one story, and it starts in Dimock. You probably heard about it because several families lost their water supply to fracking. The company responsible replaced their water for 3 years and then stopped. So the people there still don't have water and they're left to their own devices to replace it. The company responsible was required to close 3 wells to the tune of over $700,000 apiece. The company responsible was prohibited from doing more drilling in Dimock, but not anywhere else in the state. That company has 463 wells in Pennsylvania and 449 permit violations. That same company put out a press release on December 13th boasting about their production rates in Pennsylvania, but that's not why they put out their press release. They put out the release because they were talking about the deal that company, Cabot Oil and Gas, had struck with Sumitomo to send an ongoing supply of natural gas to Cove Point and then on to Japan. Right? So much for our clean energy source, right? And so when you say no to Cove Point, as you're doing so brilliantly, you are saying no on behalf of yourselves, on behalf of your communities, on behalf of your state and your natural resources. But when you say no to Cove Point, you're doing it for my state and our communities and our natural resources. That's what they plan to do. They plan to send the filthy frack gas that they frack in my state into your state. You have to say no to Cove Point, and you have to say it louder than you've ever said it before, because this is the issue of the moment. Say yes to clean energy. Say yes to clean water and air. Say yes to your children and their children and every generation beyond. It's so important. You're doing such a brilliant job. We are with you, and we thank you for helping protect our state, too. Before I go, I want to take a picture of all you waving your signs. Say no to Cove Point.
No! We're going to get so loud that the Public Service Commission lawyers on the 23rd floor of that building are going to hear us. Am I right?
Say no, Cove Point! Say no, Cove Point! Say no, Cove Point!
You guys are freaking Dominion Gas, get out of our state!
Dominion Gas, get out of our state! Dominion Gas, get out of our state! Dominion Gas, get out of our state! Dominion Gas, get out of our state! Dominion Gas, get out of our state! Dominion Gas, get out of our state! Dominion Gas, get out of our state!
Our next next speaker is Joelle Novi. She's Director of Interfaith Power and Light for Maryland, Virginia, Northern Virginia, and D.C. Joelle Novi.
Did anyone else see a rainbow yesterday? I grew up here in Baltimore, and as I made my way back to my hometown, I looked up after the rain stopped, and I saw this band of color arching across the sky. Seeing a rainbow over Baltimore reminded me of that rainbow at the end of the Bible story about Noah and the flood. In biblical times, warriors who fought with bows and arrows would show that they were ready to make peace by setting their bows upside down. So that inverted bow in the sky let the people know that the violent weather was over. For Noah, that rainbow promised a setting aside of destruction. A rainbow in the sky looks like half a circle, like half of something. It almost invites us to respond, to complete the circle with our own bow. So many good people in our communities understand that dirty energy is hurting our neighbors and our climate, and for years, we have been setting down our destructive ways and making peace with the natural world. Right here around us in Baltimore, folks have weatherized their Baltimore row houses with Retrofit Baltimore. Folks have installed rain barrels from Blue Water Baltimore. Folks have taken up the Baltimore Energy Challenge in their communities. Folks installed solar panels on the roof of the Homewood Friends meeting. And my own synagogue, Chizikamuna, redid their landscaping to prevent dirty runoff from polluting the water. It's a beautiful sight, all of the good work we're doing to live more lightly on the earth. It is our own rainbow promise. It is our sign of reconciliation with the sky, with our sacred waters, and with each other. But now, all of a sudden, Dominion is barging into our beautiful state, and their proposal is so much bigger than any of the good things that we have been trying to do. Last week, Secretary of State John Kerry called climate pollution the world's most fearsome weapon. What fearsome weapons does Dominion carry as they barrel towards us? Dominion is brandishing fracking drills and pipelines and compressor stations and liquefiers and tanker ships. You know what, Dominion? It's time to lay your weapons down. Just put them down. There's enough poison in our water. There's more than enough heat-trapping pollution in our sky. Just put it down. Over 1,000 of us are gathered here today to wage peace. We stand together today passionately committed to doing right by our neighbors, to doing right by our children's children, and to doing right by the natural world. Yesterday, there was a rainbow in the sky over Baltimore. And today, we respond with our own rainbow. No one will wage war on our climate. No one will wage war on our water. No one will harm the people of our beautiful state. No one can do that. No one will do that without a fight.
Hi everyone, you look wonderful today. My name is Shilpa Joshi. I'm the field organizer with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what this march is going to look like, then we'll have one last speaker. So we're going to exit the plaza from this side where folks came in because there's less snow. You're going to walk the length of this street right here. When you get to Fayette, you're going to cross it and walk up the street. We're going to walk up 3 blocks, come around, and come back down to the plaza by 1:30 where we'll have closing speakers. Thanks so much, and right now I'd like to introduce the Reverend Lennox Yearwood. He's the CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus.
So I just want to say first and foremost that I stand here in solidarity with my 3 beautiful sisters, the Enbridge 3, from the Michigan Coalition Against Tar Sands, who are awaiting trial in court. They spoke up against the horrors of the Keystone Pipeline, and we stand with them because we're at a moment in time when the reality is in the 20th century we dealt with equality, but in the 21st century we are dealing with existence. As I have said many times, this is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. And we must stop Cove Point. When Dr. King, in April 4th, was assassinated in Memphis, he went down to Memphis to fight for the sanitation workers. What's a little known fact that the last speech that he canceled to go to Memphis, that we know that he was assassinated, that last speech at the end of March was supposed to be right here in Baltimore, Maryland. And we know if Dr. King had been here in Baltimore, that he will be standing up right now, fighting for our future generations and saying, stop Cove Point right now. If Dr. King was here right now, he would say, stop fracking and stop it right now. And so we're at this time, so CCAN, I want to thank you for organizing this rally, but I have a request. Where's Mike and Ted and everybody? Where's Mike? There he is. So, Mike, I have a request for you. On November 1st, 1864, the Maryland Constitution, where's Heather? I think Heather's here. Heather's there doing the interview. But hopefully she can hear this. I need her to do this piece. Mike can tap Heather, right? This Mike can just tap her. Just tap her right quick. Heather, I need you to hear this one little piece. In 1864, the Maryland Constitution, November 1st, was passed. 150 years ago this year. Out of that, we were so proud in Maryland that we named, because we as Marylanders, we helped abolish slavery. And the nickname for this great state became the Free State. The Free State. So Heather, what I need to do is we need to add a new nickname to Maryland. You need to go forth and pass legislation that says this down with the fossil Free State. The fossil Free State. That needs to be the new nickname for Maryland. So anybody comes here can know that this is the fossil Free State of these United States of America. So, in ending that last speech for Dr. King that he couldn't give, but today we now end that speech for Dr. King today. And we know that he said, free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. We bring it current today. And today, with our windmills raised, and our fists raised, today we stand here to end Dr. King's speech, and we say, fossil free at last. Fossil free at last. Thank God Almighty. We want to be fossil free at last.
Stop Cove Point! 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 Stop Cove Point!
I believe that we will win. Stop Cove Point! 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 Let's march. Let's go get them. God bless you.
fracking way. No fracking way. No fracking way. Stop Cove Point. Stop Cove Point. Now stop Cove Point. Now stop Cove Point. 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 Now. Cove Point. Now. Stop Cove Point. Now. Cove Point. Now. Stop 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 Cove Point. Now. Now. Now.
Hey, Dominion, go back home! 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 All right! Welcome back, everyone. Here's one. You ready? Hey, Mikulski, we need the facts. Tell the feds to get our backs. Hey, Mikulski, we need the facts. Tell the feds to get our back. Hey, Mikulski, need the facts. Tell the feds to get our backs. Hey, O'Malley, lead on climate. It's time to break your Cove Point silence. Hey, O'Malley, lead on climate. It's time to break your Cove Point silence. Hey, O'Malley, lead on climate. It's time to break your Cove Point silence. We have working upwards close to 1,000 people. You guys were amazing. The artwork, the music. Come on, come on out. Come on, everybody who's coming back, come on out on the grass. I'm gonna introduce our next speaker. My voice is shot from all the shouting. Maya Van Rossum is a Pennsylvania resident, a fracking fighter, and she is the Delaware River Keeper. Maya?
Well, it's great to be here today, and we're so close to Washington, D.C., I thought that I should be talking about rights and our constitutional rights at the state level and the federal level. Our Declaration of Independence, one of our founding documents, recognizes our inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That we want a new direction for our states. One that supports equality, one that can lift people out of poverty, one that invests in our children, one that stops violent prohibition. I was sick.